She came back to pick up her car. The papers were signed. Everything should have been done until she asked a simple question. Why wasn't this fee on the contract yesterday? The salesman didn't smile. His voice dropped sharp and cold. You already signed, so shut up and take the car. What he didn't know, someone was watching. Someone he should have never lied to. A contract. A login at 9:30 p.m. and a truth no one in that dealership saw coming. How about you? Have you ever felt disrespected just because you didn't know the system? Comment 1, if you stayed silent and let it slide. Comment 2, if you spoke up and stood your ground. Jackson Reeves didn't pull into the dealership lot like a man who owned the place. No security escort, no freshly detailed Mercedes, no shine on his sneakers. He parked a black 2010 Honda Civic 2 blocks away and walked the rest of the way with a slow, even pace. The Tennessee air was cool that morning with a faint mist rolling off the street, just enough to blur the signage until he was close enough to read it. Reeves Auto Group. Bold white letters across the glass. His name, his legacy. And right now, something fell off underneath it. He didn't walk through the front doors like an executive. He slipped into the side where the service entrance met the break room hallway, a place most customers never saw. A place where the honest work used to start early, not get dodged. The bell above the service bay door gave a polite ding. No one looked up. Jackson scanned the floor. Reception desk empty, sales pit scattered. One guy chatting near the water cooler. 2 desks unmanned. It was barely 9:45. This was supposed to be one of his cleanest operations. Charlotte, Tennessee. Mid-range volume, high-trust market. Or at least it used to be. He didn't want to make assumptions. Not yet. The reason he'd come here unannounced in disguise without even telling his regional VP was because of a string of whispers. Quiet complaints. Odd discrepancies. Nothing big enough to raise alarms individually. Just enough to raise his instincts. A customer in Knoxville said their warranty was padded. Someone in Franklin said the numbers didn't match what they signed. Jackson didn't come to investigate one bad deal. He came to see if the tone had changed. He walked past a row of lightly used Camry, the kind this branch moved fast. That's when he saw her, a young woman in a faded blue hoodie holding a manila folder against her chest, a car seat on the ground beside her. Her baby, maybe 6 months old, slept peacefully wrapped in a yellow blanket. She wasn't talking to anyone just yet. She was waiting alone beside a closed glass door marked finance deliveries. Something about her looked familiar. He stepped closer, carefully, quietly. Then he saw it. The profile, the calm but tense posture, the eyes that didn't dart but calculated. Her name clicked into his memory like a key. Rachel Monroe. She used to work for him. Not here, not in Charlotte, but 2 states over, an accounting assistant at the Memphis regional office. She was sharp, precise, quiet, but principled. She'd once raised concerns about invoice discrepancies tied to a fleet sale. And somehow, despite being right, she disappeared a month later. No HR complaint, no formal exit, just gone. And now here she was, not an employee, a customer, standing with a folder that looked far too full for a standard car delivery. Jackson ducked behind a row of banners near the customer lounge. He didn't want her to see him. Not like this. Not yet. She didn't know he was here. And the salesman approaching her, slick suit, quick smile, clipboard in hand, had no idea who she used to be. Jackson tilted his head just enough to hear the opening line. "Miss Monroe, great to see you again," the man said, voice as smooth as butter left out overnight. "We got your paperwork just about wrapped up. Just one more little thing to go over." Rachel followed the salesman, Chad Morrison, according to the nameplate on his lapel, through the narrow hallway into a smaller glass-walled office tucked beside the finance department. He moved like a man who thought he was in control, clipboard in hand, shirt freshly pressed, hair sculpted, not cut. Jackson stayed outside, half shielded by a rotating display, stand full of roadside assistance brochures. From there, he had a clear view of everything except Rachel's eyes, which remained locked on the folder in her hands. Chad tapped a few keys on his tablet and pulled up a printout from the laser printer behind the desk. He sat across from Rachel, laid the paper flat in front of her like a menu, and began to talk fast. "All right, So this version just includes a few of the delivery items we bundle in post-signing. Totally normal stuff. I'll walk you through it. Rachel's fingers tightened on the folder. Wait, she said softly. This wasn't on the sheet I signed yesterday. Chad's voice didn't skip. Yeah. So corporate updated the delivery process last quarter. New compliance stuff. Happens all the time. Same price. Just broken out a little differently. He leaned forward, smiling. You're still getting the same car. Same deal. We're just finishing up the paperwork trail. Jackson's stomach tightened. He had helped rewrite that paperwork trail 2 years ago, specifically to eliminate manipulative add-ons. Any fees added after signing had to be logged through a secondary approval system with a timestamp reason code and full client sign-off. That's how they protected buyers. So, why did the new line items include $495 full electronics protection plan, $275 interior sterilization fee, $395 VIN etching and theft recovery system? That last one made Jackson freeze. VIN etching had been discontinued chain-wide. He'd killed it himself after a regional audit found 3 reps in Arkansas charging it without disclosing that the VINs were never actually etched. He stared at the paper in Chad's hand. The format looked off. The fonts were mismatched. The section headers didn't follow corporate template, but it looked convincing enough to pass under pressure. Rachel was quiet, rereading the list. Why is the electronics plan listed as required? She asked carefully. Chad gave her the same plastic grin. It's not required technically, but it's bundled into the financing offer. So, we include it to lock in the lower rate for you. Helps with credit scoring optimization. That was complete fiction, and Jackson knew Rachel could tell. Her eyes flicked toward the exit. She shifted slightly the baby in the carrier at her feet, letting out a tiny fussing sound, but she stayed seated. She didn't challenge him directly. Not yet. Chad kept going. I know it's a lot of paperwork. Trust me, I go through this every day. Most people just want the keys by this point. Rachel blinked slowly. Do I have to sign again? Just one more acknowledgement. Chad said, pulling a pen from his shirt pocket. It's standard. You already agreed to the terms. This just covers a final prep. Jackson wanted to step in. Every instinct told him to, but not yet. He needed to see how far this would go. He backed away from the stand, circled behind the customer lounge, and came to rest by the corner of the finance glass divider. Just in time to see Chad lower his voice and say, I know this stuff can feel overwhelming, but listen, I'm here to help you. This deal, it's solid. Don't let little details get in your head. You already signed once. You're basically golden. Rachel sat still for a second longer, then quietly asked, Can I take this home to review before I sign again? That was the moment. Chad didn't flinch, but his tone changed. He tapped the page for him now. The car is being detailed as we speak. We've already got the certificate of delivery queued up. If you leave now, we'll have to rerun your file from scratch. Jackson watched her face, watched the flicker of uncertainty, and then, barely audible, he heard Chad say, You already signed, so shut up and take the car. Jackson didn't move. Not at first. He stood just outside the doorway, hand resting lightly against the side of the brochure stand, watching the exchange unfold through the reflection on the glass. The words still echoed. You already signed, so shut up and take the car. The room didn't go silent. It just tightened like a string pulled taut across a fault line. Rachel didn't flinch. Her posture remained still, but her grip on the folder shifted firmer now, not out of fear, but control. Chad tapped the paper again, the pen in his hand still extended like an afterthought. It's all in there, he said, tone bouncing back into professional smoothness. We just itemize differently now. It's corporate policy. Jackson knew that wasn't true. And what made it worse, Chad knew it wasn't true either. He wasn't confused. He wasn't improvising. He was selling something that had never been approved with a confidence that came from practice. Rachel tilted her head slightly, scanning the document again. And the VIN etching, she asked, I don't remember that being on the original quote. Chad nodded like it was a minor detail. Every vehicle goes through the same pre-owned protocol. We etch the VINs for theft deterrent. It's already been done. Another lie. VIN etching had been cut from all dealership procedures in 2021. There was no such protocol anymore. No one had etched anything. It was a ghost fee, a phantom charge that existed only on paper. Jackson stepped back, turned toward the service corridor, and walked a long way around the sales floor. He needed air, but more than that, he needed clarity. He stopped at the edge of the sales pit, scanning the room. The receptionist had returned but was scrolling on her phone. Two other salespeople were talking by the vending machine. A man in khakis walked past, holding coffee, didn't make eye contact. It wasn't just about Chad. It was the whole tone of the place. Detached, disengaged, unwatched. Jackson stepped into the used inventory aisle and paused behind a black RAV4. From here, he had a clear line of sight back to the finance room. Chad was still talking. Rachel was listening, but barely. Her expression had hardened, not with confrontation, but with restraint. Jackson could read her now. She was doing math in her head, running totals, budget margins, deciding how much he could afford to lose just to avoid starting over. He'd seen that look before in single moms and night shift workers, and first-time buyers with nothing to fall back on. The look of someone who'd already been knocked down once and couldn't afford to be knocked down again. And that's when something clicked. Chad wasn't just taking money. He was counting on her silence. He was betting she wouldn't push back, because people like her rarely did. Jackson clenched his jaw, not in anger, in certainty. He had enough. He took one step toward the glass office, then another, slow, steady, without saying a word. Inside, Chad circled one final line with his pen and said, "Let's go ahead and finalize this," but the door never closed. Jackson walked in before Rachel could answer, calm but deliberate. His voice was even, but every word landed like a drop weight. "That delivery fee? That's not part of the agreement." Chad blinked. Rachel looked up, startled. Chad tried to recover. "Excuse me." Jackson didn't flinch. "The VN etching, the electronic protection, that's not in the approved package. Show me where it says it is." Chad hesitated, eyes flicking toward the computer, then the hallway, then back to Jackson. I don't know who you are, but you will," Jackson said. "Now explain this in front of her." Chad stood a little taller, like posture alone could reassert control. "Sir, I'm not sure what you think this is," he said, attempting a laugh. "But I've been here 4 years. I know the packages inside and out." Jackson didn't respond to the performance. He pointed at the page. "Then show me. Show her. Right here. Where does it say this dealership is authorized to charge for VIN etching?" Chad shifted. "It's in the system. Finance will break it down better once we run the final forms." "No," Jackson said flatly. "You break it down right now in front of her." Rachel slowly stood up, lifting the carrier handle as she moved. Her expression didn't change, but her silence did. It became a presence. Chad's face flushed. "I don't have to do this. I don't even know who you..." He stopped mid-sentence because just behind Jackson in the open hallway, a man had stepped into view. Dark blazer, pressed slacks, a dealership lanyard still around his neck. His name was Tom Whitaker, general manager of the Charlotte branch. And the second he saw who was standing in that office, he froze. "Mr. Reeves," he said, quiet, almost breathless. Chad turned sharply, eyes wide. "Wait, what?" But Jackson didn't turn. He didn't smile, didn't offer a nod or handshake or correction. He looked at Rachel instead. "I'm sorry," he said gently. "This isn't how we treat people. Not here. Not under my name." Her brows pulled slightly inward like she was still processing what had just shifted in the room. But Jackson was already moving. He turned to Tom. "I need a conference room," he said. "Now." Tom, pale and sweating, nodded quickly and motioned down the hallway. Chad didn't say another word, just stood there, arms limp, clipboard hanging at his side. Jackson looked back at Rachel. His voice softened. "Please come with me. I want to make this right." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Her steps were cautious but deliberate, the baby now stirring faintly in the carrier at her side. As they passed through the main sales floor, the air changed. Phones stopped ringing. Conversations paused. A couple of heads turned, but no one dared to speak. Chad didn't follow right away. He lingered by the glass wall, stunned, unsure whether to chase the moment or vanish from it. Jackson didn't look back. Trevor, the lot attendant, stood near the side window, and caught his eye as they passed. The kid didn't say anything, but Jackson saw the flicker of recognition. He gave a subtle nod in return. Inside the conference room, Jackson pulled out a chair for Rachel and took the seat across. Tom entered next, closing the door behind them. Chad followed slower, trying not to show how much he was sweating. He crossed his arms and leaned against the wall, trying to look relaxed. He wasn't. Jackson reached across the table and picked up the clipboard Chad had left behind. "This the quote you gave her?" he asked without looking up. Chad shifted again. "Yeah." Jackson flipped it open, scanned the numbers, then circled 3 different fees with a pen from the holder on the table. "Explain these," he said. Chad straightened. "Look, I don't know why I'm being grilled here. Everyone includes these. It's standard. Do you have documentation that shows these fees are approved?" Jackson asked. Chad hesitated. "They're in the system." "No, they're not," Jackson said. Firmer. "Now, I helped rewrite that system. VIN etching discontinued in 2021. Powertrain coverage limited to 5 years. Not full electronics protection. You tacked over $2,000 in junk onto a deal that was already closed. And you did it because you thought no one would notice." Rachel said nothing, but her hands trembled slightly over the carrier's strap. She stared at the paper, didn't blink, didn't breathe. "You told her the payment would be $349. Jackson continued. "But that's only possible if she puts $2,000 down. And even then, the rate you quoted is inflated by 2.5 points. That's not a mistake. That's a con." Chad pushed off the wall. "I hit my numbers. Customers leave happy. I know how to sell." "No," Jackson said, leaning forward. "You know how to pressure. There's a difference." Tom finally spoke. "Jackson, I mean Mr. Reeves. I didn't know he was doing all this. I swear, we've been busy, but the numbers look solid. I figured that's a problem." Jackson cut in. "You looked at the numbers. I looked at the people." Rachel stood slowly. Her face was flushed, not with embarrassment, but with heat. Disbelief. A quiet kind of fury that didn't need volume to be heard. "I thought this was a good place," she said. Not to anyone in particular, just out loud. "I really thought it was different." Jackson turned to her. "It was supposed to be," he said, "and I'm sorry it wasn't." He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a card, slid across the table. "This is my direct line. I'm going to personally make sure you get a fair deal. If you still want the car, you'll get it at the right price without the garbage." She looked at the card, then took it careful, like it might vanish if she blinked. "Thank you," she said. "And we'll have someone else handle the paperwork," Jackson added. "Someone who doesn't invent numbers." Chad's arms dropped to his sides. "Are you serious?" "Clean out your desk," Jackson said, standing. "You're done here. Come on." "I know negotiation," Jackson snapped. "You knew better. You just didn't care." Chad didn't argue. Not again. He stormed out, muttering something under his breath that no one acknowledged. Jackson turned back to Tom. "We're not done talking either," he said. "I'll see you in your office in 10. Then he walked Rachel back out toward the lobby. Heads turned as they passed. Conversations that had resumed now fell quiet again. Some employees looked away. Some didn't even pretend. The front desk receptionist sat rigid in her seat, hands frozen above the keyboard. Jackson stopped in front of her. "Did you greet her when she walked in?" The receptionist blinked. I don't remember." Jackson nodded slowly. Start remembering or start looking. But he knew better. Firing one man wouldn't fix what was broken. This wasn't about Chad anymore. This was about culture, tone, the tiny decisions that shaped how people behaved when they thought no one important was watching. Jackson sat alone in Tom's office. The blinds were open. From here, he could see the full showroom floor. The noise outside had returned phone rings, soft footsteps, the low hum of computers. But the room still felt quieter than usual, like everyone was waiting for something. Behind him, the door opened. Tom walked in. His steps were slower now, measured. He looked smaller somehow, like someone who'd realized how long he'd been asleep at the wheel. He sat across from Jackson without being asked. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I swear to you, Jackson, I didn't know Brent. I mean, Chad was doing that." Jackson didn't reply right away. He stared at the floor, then at the window. But you knew something, he said finally. You knew complaints were going up. You knew the deals were getting more aggressive. You knew customer satisfaction dropped last quarter and you blamed the survey system. Tom didn't answer. Jackson leaned forward, elbows on the desk. What happened to what we built here? Tom shook his head. I thought we were doing okay. Numbers were strong. Turnover was low. I figured maybe the industry just changed. Jackson's eyes stayed locked on his. The industry didn't change. We did. We stopped listening. We stopped paying attention. We stopped treating people like people. Tom exhaled slowly, rubbed the side of his face. So what now? Jackson stood calm, clear.